Hello, my beautiful caterpillars, and shout-outs to my 100 subscribers. Let's keep going. If it's your first time here, welcome. If you are a returning subscriber, welcome back. The information in this video is intended for educational purposes. It is not intended to diagnose or treat any diseases. Please speak with your healthcare provider before making any changes to your lifestyle. If during the video you find value in this content and have not yet subscribed, consider subscribing and liking the video. In part 1 of this series, we discussed what is the menstrual cycle, what is a normal cycle, and the hormones that are involved during the menstrual cycle. In this video, we'll be pulling all the information we have learned so far as we discuss the hormonal changes that occur on the road to ovulation and the physiological signs and symptoms you may experience during this phase. As we discussed in part 1 of this series, the follicular phase starts from the first day of menstrual bleeding until ovulation. In a standard 28-day cycle, this phase typically spans the first 13 days. If you haven't had a chance to watch part 1, I recommend checking out that video first. I'll link it somewhere on the screen and the description bar. The follicular phase is often referred to as the estrogenic phase because estrogen levels are generally at their peak during this part of the menstrual cycle. This surge in estrogen is primarily due to its production by the developing ovarian follicles. It's worth noting that the duration of the follicular phase can vary among women and even within the same woman's reproductive life. On your screen is a graph depiction of the changes in hormone levels during the first half of the menstrual cycle, the follicular phase. Remember, this phase also includes menstrual bleeding. Let's do a quick review and orient ourselves to the various hormones. As we discussed in part 1, the hormones involved during the menstrual cycle are follicular stimulating hormone, FSH, depicted by the red line; estrogen, specifically estradiol, the type of hormone secreted by the developing follicle, depicted by the blue line; luteinizing hormone, LH, depicted by the green line; and progesterone, depicted by the black line. Also pay attention to the body's temperature during the follicular phase. Also, take note of the ovarian follicle changes that are occurring. Lastly, observe when menstrual bleeding is occurring and the days of the menstrual cycle at the bottom. Now that we are clear on the cast members during the phase, let's discuss the process. We've previously mentioned that day 1 of menstrual bleeding is the start of the follicular phase, and this occurs due to the sudden drop in progesterone in the luteal phase, not shown, which in large part was responsible for keeping the uterine lining nourished and in place. As menstruation begins, the key hormones discussed earlier, namely estrogen, FSH, LH, and progesterone, are not present in any significant amount. Pay attention to these hormone levels during menstruation. They are mostly low. About day 5, or around the time menstrual bleeding is ending, small amounts of LH, green line, are released by the pituitary gland in the brain. Observe the small bump or mountain hill developing of LH, the green line. As LH, green line, and FSH, red line, hormones increase, this encourages the development of follicles to grow. By day 7 or so, one of the follicles emerges as the dominant, matured follicle, which then starts secreting significant amounts of estrogen. The other follicles disintegrate by a process known as atresia. Day 6 to 12. As estrogen begins rising, blue line, LH, green line, and FSH, red line, begin decreasing, causing the uterine lining to increase in thickness. Also during this time around, days 8 to 9, the rise in estrogen has started having its effects on cervical fluid secretions, which are sticky in quality. Our next video is dedicated entirely to cervical fluid changes. If that interests you, please consider subscribing, liking this video, and hitting the notification bell to get notified. Day 12 to 13. Estrogen levels peak around day 13, blue line. LH, green line. Surges 6 and 10 times its normal rate, peaking about 12 to 116 hours before ovulation, till with a less dramatic surge in FSH, red line. Day 14. The surge in hormones causes the egg to be released from the matured follicle, causing ovulation to occur at day 14, mid-cycle of a 28-day cycle. Observe that body temperature during this phase is mostly stable, and that my beautiful caterpillars is the process that occurs on the road to ovulation. Let's now briefly discuss the signs and symptoms that occur during this phase. During the follicular phase, the body may experience various mental and physical signs. They are increased confidence and optimism, increased mood, as estrogen increases dopamine, the feel-good hormone, and an increased need to socialize with friends and loved ones. You may also experience increased energy levels, an increase in your libido, sex drive, clearer skin, increased strength, breast tenderness, and changes in cervical mucus. Thanks for sticking around. Have you subscribed yet? If you found this information useful, consider subscribing. That motivates us to keep creating informational content. Don't forget to like and share this video. If you've ever wondered what's going on down there, then our next video is for you. We'll take a deep dive into the changes in cervical fluid during the follicular phase. If there are any topics you would like me to cover, leave me a comment. As always, my beautiful caterpillars, I'll see you at the edge of your comfort zone.